Hi, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk People Pleasing. So, today I'm going to be talking about something that may seem small on the surface, but if you're an anxious people pleaser, like I used to be, you will know that it does not feel small and that it can feel like an absolute minefield, and that is what to wear. Now, I'm not talking fashion tips or advice over outfit choices or trends. That's not my forte, and unfortunately, I'm not qualified in that area. However, what I will be talking about is the anxiety, the indecision, the overthinking, the horrible, stressful feeling that can come up for you when you're getting dressed, you're getting ready for a night out or for whatever, and you feel so preoccupied by what other people might end up thinking about you. You might be familiar with that sinking feeling because you're terrified about how you might come across, worried about being judged or criticized in some way, or whether you're going to fit in with everyone else. You might, and I know I used to do this, you might even message people to check in with what they're wearing because you just don't feel confident enough to just wear whatever or to wear what you want to wear. Or you might not even know what you want to wear. So it just feels easier to base your decision on what other people are wearing. So if you've ever stood in front of your wardrobe, clothes on the floor, clothes everywhere because you're stressing out, you're trying on different things, nothing feels or looks right, you might relate to being on the verge of tears or feeling like you're about to have a meltdown because you're so anxious about what to wear. You're not alone. I've been there, and I know from people I've spoken to on Instagram and people I know anyway that it's not uncommon to go through this. In this episode, I'm going to just explore it a little bit more and we'll unpack it together. So, being a people pleaser, you've probably had years, if not decades, of focusing on other people, what they need, what they feel, what they think, including what they think of you. And when you're so focused on that, as I have been in the past, and so focused on how others see you and how you're coming across to them, every little decision can become a source of stress. And that transfers over to even decisions about what to wear. I know myself, you can become so paralyzed by indecision over something that some people might view as pretty simple, but it's not simple because of everything that gets triggered where we're in that moment trying to decide what to wear. You might be like how I used to be, spending hours trying on different outfits, overthinking what people will think about the outfit, overthinking like possible combinations of outfits, every detail, wondering whether people will think you look silly. Are you overdressed? Am I underdressed? What's everyone else wearing? How will that compare? Am I just wearing the wrong thing for the wrong occasion? It's just like when you think about it like that, you can see why it's not a small thing. If you've got anxiety and if you're a people pleaser, do you know what? It's exhausting, isn't it? Like I remember it's just draining and exhausting. It just takes the fun out of the things that we should be enjoying and having fun with, like going out with your mates. That should be fun and enjoyable, or going to certain events and occasions like weddings and even just going shopping, do you know what I mean? It just adds a layer of stress that you do not need or deserve. And then because of that, the consequence usually is that you might find you just end up wearing something that's safe. For me and a lot of people I work with, that means wearing stuff that's perhaps doesn't stand out, it blends in. It might be like blacks, greys, or neutrals, or something where you have more certainty, like maybe you've worn it before, been complimented, therefore it feels less uncertain to wear that. So I'm going to wear that in the knowledge that someone's told me it looks all right before. You've had that reassurance. Anything basically that will then reduce the risk of you feeling like you're being scrutinized or judged in a negative way. Another way it might manifest, and when I say this, it's not to take away from the fact that some people follow trends and stuff like that because they like following the latest fashion trends, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not slating that at all. But for some people pleasers and people with anxiety, it can manifest in terms of following the fashion trends because they tell you how to best fit in, don't they, in a way? If you're wearing something that's in fashion, then you're reducing the risk of wearing what you might deem the wrong thing. And this is something I think I probably did in the past, not because I liked those clothes, whatever was in fashion, but because I felt like I had to. It didn't even cross my mind. It didn't even cross my mind to consider there might be an alternative in terms of just like developing my own sense of style or discovering what I actually liked. Yeah, it just felt easier because I suppose they told me how best to increase my chances of feeling like I fit in with people. But as a consequence of all that, you end up just suppressing your own sense of style, your preferences, your identity, ultimately. And I'm not saying your identity lies solely in outfit choices or clothes, not at all, but it just adds to that layer of suppressing your sense of self. Because when you're so focused on how other people might be perceiving you, you just lose touch with or never even really learn who you really are. You might not even know what you like to wear. I used to find myself staring at the wardrobe, just completely overthinking everything. What would so and so think if I wore that? Negatively judging how things looked on me. My inner critic. I'm sure you'll be familiar with that critical voice that we all have at times. It'd be saying things like, "Oh, Charlotte, like you look like a knob. You can't wear that, you look washed out," or "That looks daft, people are going to take the piss." Just this real sense that people will be judging you in a negative way, even if rationally you know that the people that you're going to be with wouldn't, it still feels true. And at its peak of my anxious people pleasing, like I said earlier, I don't think I even considered for 1 minute what I would love to wear if I was free from that anxious people pleasing. It didn't even cross my mind to consider alternatives. So used to dressing for others that what made me feel good, what colors I liked, what patterns, what made me feel good inside, it never even crossed my mind. And that was not on my radar because ultimately I didn't feel good inside. And that's the pattern I see with a lot of women I work with. And it's a pattern that I imagine you might be able to resonate with. You might have been people pleasing for so long that you don't know who you truly are. A lot of the people that come to me for therapy, and they might not have a specific clear goal at the start. They might come to therapy or inquire, and I speak to them, and they say things like, "I just feel like I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like or what I really want from life." And that's how it can sort of manifest within us. I know we're talking about outfits here and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it's a theme I see and it comes out in terms of what we wear and how we show up in the world. That's what happens. You spend so long tuning into other people's expectations and you're so aware and hyper vigilant of what other people are thinking and feeling that your attention is directed away from your own identity. It's not just about the clothes, is it? This indecision and this anxiety, it takes its toll emotionally and physically. It can leave you feeling completely drained, emotional, on the verge of tears before you've even stepped out the house, as I've been many a time in the past. And it just takes the shine off things that we want to go and do and enjoy. You might end up running late because you've been putting it off getting ready because of the stress, and then you've left it too late and you're trying on about 10 different outfits. You're feeling like overwhelmed and stressed, you're sweating, you feel sick with anxiety maybe, your clothes are all over the room, you end up thinking, "I need a drink. I need a drink to calm me down and feel I'm able to go out." And I won't go too much into how drinking can become a bit of a coping strategy for people because I think that's for a different episode. I think that deserves an episode in itself. But all of this because you're so preoccupied with other people's opinions. The outfit anxiety is just another layer of the self-consciousness you feel on top of everything else that you're dealing with. And honestly, I can't tell you the amount of times this happened to me in the past. I get so worked up about this feeling of being judged in a negative way and worrying about everyone else thinking things of me. Do they think I'm trying too hard or I'm not trying hard enough? And ultimately, because of the people pleasing, what was driving the people pleasing for me and the root cause, I just wanted validation. I spent a lot of my 20s seeking validation. Unconsciously, this is. I didn't go out there thinking, "Oh, I'm seeking validation. I want approval from people." It wasn't like that, but it manifests unconsciously as this need for people to like me and to validate me and to, yeah, just to feel that approval and be included. So I definitely wear stuff for external validation. I'd wear the clothes that I've been told I look good in, sort of stick to them because I wanted so badly for people to think I look good. I think, even talking about it now, I just feel so much compassion for that younger me and how low her self esteem and self worth was. And what I didn't realize during that time was that pressure I felt to fit in and that need and want to be liked and included and accepted was just robbing me of my ability to enjoy myself and be happy. It was just feeding this cycle of self doubt and insecurity. So that's enough of me describing all those horrible feelings that I'm sure we're all familiar with experiencing. Let's move on now to how do we break out of it? You'll notice a theme as I go through these episodes, and you might have seen on Instagram, there's a bit of a theme of me emphasizing the importance of understanding where our difficulties come from, really knowing the why behind the way we are, what we do, how we feel, and how we think. Really getting curious about our experience to identify the root cause of our people pleasing. Identifying and addressing the root cause was the game changer for me because before that, to a stage of being able to notice my anxiety, what was keeping it going, and the cycles I was in terms of unhelpful behavioral patterns and thought patterns. And I got it. I got it. I understood what was happening. And I was at a stage where I was able to challenge, my unhelpful thoughts and behaviors. But the thing was, I got it, but I didn't feel it. I didn't feel any different. And it wasn't until I embarked on deeper therapy that I was able to get under the surface of what was going on for me. And that deeper therapy really helped me realize where my problem stemmed from. And importantly, targeted the root cause. And that was when the shift in how I felt about myself happened. It went from me just getting it to actually feeling it. And with that change in how I felt and saw a noticeable shift in my mindset towards most things and what I did and didn't do. And I suddenly felt able to actually act in line with the thought challenging I was doing. So I was challenging my unhelpful, negative, anxious thoughts and coming up with an alternative perspective that was more based on the reality of the situation rather than how I was feeling. And with that deeper therapy, I became more able to feel like I believed the rationalized thought. And with that feeling, it felt more possible to start changing what I was doing or not doing and changing like my unhelpful behavioral patterns. So I was able to break out of this cycle of for what we're talking about, this outfit anxiety that I'd gotten into. I actually felt like I could break that cycle rather than just telling myself I could. I felt it. And so I started trying and buying clothes that I actually liked the look of just because I liked the look of them. And with that, I noticed that I just loved colour. You'll probably know from Instagram and dungarees. But yeah, I was like, oh my God, who knew? Who knew I like all this colour? I'm not saying I never wore colour before, but I only ever stuck to colours that perhaps someone had complimented me on before because I thought, oh, well, if they've said I look nice in that, maybe I'll buy everything in that one colour. But yeah, I love a range of colours. Who knew? And then I got to that stage where I was, you know what? If I want to wear orange, I'm going to wear orange. Do you know what I mean? I was suddenly weight off my shoulders. I know I'm very conscious to some people. This might sound like such a little thing because it's about clothes. God, it's not a big deal. It's just clothes. But if you can relate to all the stuff I've been saying, you'll know it is a big deal. And it is amazing to no longer feel so constrained and by people pleasing and so anxious about choosing what to wear. And it felt weird and anxiety inducing at first. Of course it did after years of being an anxious people pleaser. What would people think of me if I started wearing such and such a thing? And that inner critic mocking me was sometimes there. I noticed that there was certain people in my life that it felt harder to show up as my true self in front of. But as I did more and more, that inner critic got got less loud, it got quieter. And it's just so freeing when you get to that stage. It's no longer caring so much about how people view you or what they're going to be thinking about you. The more I leaned into my preferences and just followed, what I wanted to wear because of the colour I was in the mood for or whatever, the less anxious I felt. And it just, yeah, just built and built. And I just wasn't pretending anymore. And I even feel emotional just saying that now. I've reached that stage where it was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't have to mask. I don't have to, shapeshift who I am for people to like me and to feel accepted because I actually like myself. Who knew? And if you're listening and thinking, yeah, well, I don't even know where to start, I do feel worked up when it comes to deciding what to wear. And it's all good and well for you. You're a therapist, so you can practice what you preach and stuff. Then please know it's completely understandable that you might feel that way. And it's not uncommon. It is a process and it does take time. But if I can do it, honestly, so can you. So here's a few things that you could perhaps try to help you break free from your own anxious people pleasing when it comes to how you show up in the world in terms of what you wear. So, number one, it sounds simple, but it's not for us people pleaser. Ask yourself what you want when you're getting dressed or you're making a decision about something generally, because this can cross over. Really pause for a moment and ask yourself, just what do I like? What do I look at and think, oh, I like that? What preferences do you have, perhaps, lurking beneath the people pleasing? What would make me feel good? Something to help you identify what you like might be a little exercise where you close your eyes and consider to yourself, if I wake up tomorrow knowing that I've worn this outfit and there was no hint of judgment, no snide remarks, no criticism, no one was laughing at me or mocking me, and everything went smoothly. It all went how I wanted it to go, and I felt I enjoyed what I was wearing. What would you have chosen? Knowing that everything went smoothly, there was nothing to stress about. What would you have chosen? And use that then to perhaps guide you. If it feels too much to just go all out in a new style or a new colour or new clothes, then you could consider perhaps breaking things down and starting small. Consider how you could perhaps implement just a little bit more of you, of what you like. Maybe it's your favourite colour. Maybe just easing in then to wearing something that's a bit more you rather than about other people's perception. And I know it doesn't feel like a small thing, obviously, with everything I've just discussed in this episode. But when you take a step back and see it for what it is, it's mad, really, isn't it? How we've been programmed almost to conform to a certain way to be and to show up in the world. And we've been made to feel anxious when it comes to what we wear and stuff like that. All the messages we've received growing up, good girl conditioning, the media, society, culture, the environments we've grown up in, everything's sort of told us we have to conform to a certain way of being and of showing up in the world. And sometimes I find reflecting on that, it gets me, the fire in me going, I get a bit angry about it sometimes. And a bit of anger is quite good because it can just fire you up to change something. It can just give you that bit of oomph to take a step towards change. So when you consider how ridiculous it is and unfair it is, that us women in particular are made to feel like we can't show up in the world as our true selves, we can't express ourselves, we should suppress and we should conform to certain people's ideas of what it means to be a woman and stuff like that. Sometimes using that sense of injustice and that anger that you can feel with that can often help you feel more able to take a step towards changing things for yourself. And as you do start implementing changes, be kind to yourself in terms of being aware of different environments or people, situations that might make you feel more anxious than others. And when you're starting small and starting implementing changes to what you wear to lead you towards your more authentic sense of self, you could perhaps start with doing that in the environments that you feel a bit safer in. And when I say safe, I mean like emotionally safe. So there might be certain people you have in your life that you feel more comfortable around than others. And don't be hard on yourself if you feel like you're making changes and you're progressing toward this more sense of authenticity that you want. Don't be hard on yourself if you find that there are certain people in your life that perhaps make it more difficult or make it feel more difficult for you to show up more authentically with. There will be, I imagine, people who make you feel less comfortable than others to do that. And that's okay, you know. The ultimate thing is about feeling more free to tune into what you want and need. And there will be occasions where you do feel like you need to just blend in more, for want of a better way of saying it, so that you feel more at ease in a certain environment. So just if you notice that, don't be criticizing yourself or being hard on yourself or see it as not making progress. In a way, it is progress because you're tuning into that need for you to feel more safe around certain people. So I'll just leave you with this, that it's not about the clothes, is it? I think we all know that. It's not about the outfits or the clothes or the style. It's about either reclaiming or discovering for the first time your true sense of self. And it's such a powerful thing to start embracing decisions for you and just showing up in the world as your true, authentic self. And I want to say that there are still times where I feel that anxiousness about showing up in the world. But the difference is it doesn't stop me from showing up in the world. And it's nowhere near as intense as it was in my peak anxious people pleasing days. I can observe it for what it is rather than feel consumed by it. And then the more I show up in the world as me, the less it shows up. And I don't say that to gloat or to boast about how far I've come. I just wanted to share that to just empower you and help you feel empowered to take that step towards breaking free from people pleasing and discovering your true authentic self. So please, if this has resonated with you or you know someone who struggles in the ways that I've discussed today, you can break free from it. I'm proof of that. It's not an overnight process, and I'll never pretend it is, but it is worth it. So if you want to dive deeper into this, or if you're like a lot of the women I work with who tell me that they just don't even know who they are because they've been suppressing themselves for so long, that's what my therapy approach helps people with. So please feel free to get in touch. I do offer a free initial chat so I can tell you a little bit more about my approach and how I can help you. And you can find me on Instagram at Charlotte_Bailey_therapies. I'm on there a lot. And please share or subscribe if this episode has resonated with you. And I would love to hear from you, not just if you want to start therapy, but if you have anything that you would like me to cover on Let's Talk People Pleasing, then please do feel free to DM me on Insta. I know you might hear people say that at certain businesses and stuff and just it not really register that they're actually meaning that, but I am. So please feel free to do that. And thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon.